The child's laughter echoed through the tiny apartment, and Lucia Montgomery pressed her hand against the window, watching the snowfall outside while her heart hammered with the familiar terror that had become her constant companion for 3 years. She had run the moment she discovered the pregnancy, stealing away in the dead of night from the vampire court, where she had served as a translator for diplomatic meetings between the human and vampire worlds. The vampire king, Quinlan had taken her to his bed with a passion that had consumed them both. But Lucia knew the ancient laws. Human women who bore vampire children were bound to the court forever, their offspring claimed as property of the realm. She would become nothing more than a vessel, a footnote in the endless history of his immortal life. So she had disappeared into the sprawling chaos of human cities, moving from place to place, always looking over her shoulder, dyeing her distinctive auburn hair darker, wearing contacts to hide her unusual amber eyes that Quinlan had once said reminded him of autumn sunsets. She had given birth alone in a charity hospital, holding her daughter close and weeping with joy and terror in equal measure. Arya was 3 now, beautiful and strange, with her mother's features but hair so pale it appeared almost silver in certain lights, and eyes that sometimes caught the light with an otherworldly gleam. She was faster than other children, stronger, her senses sharper. Lucia had watched other mothers at the playground eye her daughter with confusion when Arya would hear conversations from impossibly far away or climb structures meant for much older children. "Mama, look!" Arya called from where she sat surrounded by crayons and paper. She had drawn a figure tall and imposing with elaborate details that seemed far too sophisticated for a 3-year-old's hand. "I dreamed about him again." Lucia's blood turned to ice. The drawings had started 6 months ago. Always the same figure, a man with flowing white hair, regal bearing, and eyes that Arya colored with silver and gold. She described him as the king in the castle made of night, and each time Lucia had to excuse herself to be sick with fear. "That's lovely, sweetheart," she managed, her voice strangled. "Why don't we put it with the others?" She had burned the others, actually, in the building's incinerator, as if destroying the pictures could somehow sever whatever impossible connection existed between her daughter and the father who didn't know she existed. The knock at the door came 3 hours later, just as darkness fell completely. Lucia froze in the middle of preparing dinner, the knife in her hand suddenly feeling like a pathetic defense. She had prepared for this moment 1,000 times in her mind, the emergency bag packed in the closet, the window escape route she had practiced, the false identities she had purchased from a forger who asked no questions. Lucia Montgomery. The voice from the other side was elegant, feminine, and utterly cold. "The king requests your presence. It would be unwise to run." Her hands shook so badly she nearly dropped the knife. Arya looked up from her coloring, her strange eyes wide and curious rather than afraid. "Is someone here?" her daughter asked. "Stay in your room," Lucia whispered urgently. "No matter what you hear, stay quiet." But Arya was already moving toward the door with that uncanny speed, and Lucia lunged forward, catching her daughter and pulling her back. The child struggled with surprising strength. "He's here," Arya said with certainty. "The king from my dreams, he's close." The door exploded inward, not with force but with a simple dissolution of the locks, as if they had never existed. 3 figures entered, all bearing the unmistakable appearance of high-ranking vampires, skin like porcelain, hair ranging from pure white to palest platinum, eyes that reflected the dim apartment light like a cat's. They wore modern clothing, but their bearing was ancient, aristocratic. The woman who had spoken was tall and severe, her white hair bound in an elaborate braid. "I am Seraphine, first counsel to King Quinlan Larenthis. You will come with us." "Please," Lucia begged, holding Arya tightly against her chest. Her daughter had gone very still, her small body tense. "Please, I'll come with you. I'll do whatever he wants, but let me take her somewhere safe first. She's just a child. She has nothing to do with—" "The child has everything to do with this," Seraphine interrupted, her gaze fixing on Arya with an intensity that made Lucia want to flee. "Did you truly think you could hide a royal blood heir? The king has felt her existence since the moment of her birth, a pull in his blood that gave him no peace. It has taken 3 years to locate you because you have been clever, but a vampire always finds what belongs to him." "She doesn't belong to anyone," Lucia said fiercely, backing toward the window. "She's my daughter." "She is the king's daughter," another vampire said, this one male with scars across his pale face. "And you stole her from her birthright." "I protected her from becoming a prisoner." "You made her a fugitive instead," Seraphine said, and there was something almost like pity in her ancient eyes. "Did you think this would end any other way? Come peacefully, or we will take you by force. Those are your only options." Arya stirred in Lucia's arms and spoke in a voice too clear, too certain for her age. "I want to meet him." No, baby, you don't understand. I dream about him every night, Arya continued, and her eyes had taken on that eerie shine that happened when her vampire nature surfaced. He's sad, he's been looking for us. He won't hurt us. Sweetheart, it's not that simple. The child has more sense than you, Seraphine said. King Quinlan has mobilized every resource at his disposal to find you both. He has been unstable in your absence. You will come now and you will face him. Lucia knew she had lost. She had always known this moment would come, had lived in terror of it, but she had hoped for more time. She had hoped to raise her daughter in freedom, away from the Byzantine politics and cruel hierarchies of the vampire world. If he hurts her, Lucia said, her voice breaking, I will find a way to kill him, king or not. Bold words from a human, the scarred vampire said, but Seraphine held up a hand. The king has given explicit instructions that you and the child are not to be harmed, she said. You have his word for whatever you believe that is worth. His word, Lucia repeated bitterly, remembering passionate whispers in the dark, promises made between tangled sheets. I know exactly what that's worth. They were escorted from the apartment into a black vehicle with windows too tinted to see through. Lucia held Arya close, her daughter's small body warm against hers, her silver blonde hair soft against Lucia's cheek. She memorized the feel of her, preparing for the moment when she would inevitably be taken away. The vehicle drove for hours, leaving the city and heading into the countryside where old estates sprawled across vast properties, hidden from casual human notice. Finally, they turned onto a private road that wound through ancient forests until a structure emerged from the darkness. It was not a castle, not exactly, but it had that quality, a massive manor house built from dark stone, its architecture spanning centuries, with modern elements integrated seamlessly into a Gothic foundation. Windows glowed with warm light, but the overall impression was of something powerful and old, a place where human laws held no sway. The Court of Eternal Night, Seraphine announced. The king's ancestral seat, hidden from human eyes for 800 years. Lucia's breath caught. She had heard of this place during her time as a translator but had never been permitted to see it. Only the most trusted humans were allowed into the inner sanctum of vampire royalty, and she had been too junior, too new, too human. They were led through corridors of breathtaking beauty, vaulted ceilings painted with frescoes depicting vampire history, floors of polished marble, tapestries that had hung for centuries. Vampire courtiers paused to stare as they passed, their pale faces curious, some hostile. Whispers followed in their wake. The king's human, the missing child, royal blood, can you sense it? Arya clung to her mother but looked around with wide, fascinated eyes, taking in everything. It's like my dreams, she whispered. Mama, it's exactly like my dreams. That made Lucia's heart ache with dread. What kind of connection existed between Quinlan and their daughter that he could reach her even in sleep? Finally, they stopped before an enormous set of double doors carved with intricate scenes of battles and coronations. Seraphine turned to face them, her expression grave. The king waits within, she said. You will show proper respect, human. Whatever your grievances. He is beyond anger now. I do not know what you will face. I don't care about his anger, Lucia said, but her voice shook. I care about my daughter's safety. Then we are in agreement about something, Seraphine replied cryptically and pushed open the doors. The chamber beyond was vast, a throne room that managed to feel both medieval and modern. The far wall was entirely glass, looking out over the dark forest, the night sky visible above. The throne itself was carved from black stone, elevated on a dais, and sitting upon it Lucia's breath stopped. Quinlan Larenthus looked exactly as she remembered and yet completely different. His hair was pure white, flowing past his shoulders, his skin pale as snow, his features sharp and aristocratic and inhumanly beautiful. He wore modern clothing, black pants, a black shirt, but his bearing was ancient, regal, the weight of centuries in his posture. His eyes, those impossible eyes of silver and gold that shifted depending on his mood, fixed on them with an intensity that made Lucia want to run. But it was the expression on his face that shocked her. Not rage, though she had expected that. Not coldness, though she had prepared for it. Anguish. Raw, terrible anguish. He rose slowly, moving with the liquid grace that marked his kind, descending the dais steps. His gaze moved from Lucia to Arya and stayed there, drinking in every detail of the small child who watched him with matching eyes. 3 years his voice was rough, unused, as if he hadn't spoken in ages. 3 years I have felt her in my blood, known she existed somewhere in the world, and could not find her. 3 years of madness. You weren't supposed to find us at all, Lucia said, trying to keep her voice steady. I left so we could be free. His gaze snapped to her, and the intensity of it nearly drove her back a step. Free? You think you were trapped? You think I would have? He stopped, visibly controlling himself, his hands clenching at his sides. You ran without a word. without explanation. I woke to find you gone, and when I searched, when I used every resource to locate you, you had vanished as if you had never existed. Do you have any comprehension of what that did to me? You would have kept me prisoner, Lucia shot back, finding her courage. The laws are clear. Human women who bear vampire children belong to the court. Our children are taken to be raised as vampires. We become nothing, possessions. Is that what you think? His voice was dangerously soft now. That I would have treated you as a possession? Wouldn't you have? Can you stand there and tell me I would have had any choice in my life, any freedom?
You had my heart.
The words exploded from him, and the room seemed to shake with the force of his emotion. Several vampires who had been standing guard along the walls shifted uncomfortably. You had all of me, Lucia. I was going to change the laws, restructure the entire court system if necessary. I was prepared to face rebellion from the old families, to tear down traditions that had stood for millennia, because I could not imagine my life without you in it as my equal, not my captive. Lucia stared at him, her mind reeling. You never said I was waiting for the right moment, he said bitterly. I wanted everything to be perfect. I was a fool who thought I had time, who didn't realize that my silence would be interpreted as indifference. He looked at Arya again, and his expression softened into something Lucia had never seen before, wonder mixed with pain. She has your face, your features. But my blood, I can feel it singing to mine. Arya had been watching this exchange with unusual stillness for a 3-year-old. Now she stirred in Lucia's arms and said clearly, You're sad. Quinlan's breath caught audibly. Yes, he said softly. I am sad because you missed me. Every day since you were born. He took a step closer, then stopped as if afraid to spook them. I felt you come into the world, felt the moment your heart began to beat, and I knew that Lucia had been pregnant, that she had run to hide you from me. It nearly drove me mad not knowing where you were, if you were safe, if your mother could protect you from the dangers of the world. Mama protected me good, Arya said loyally. We moved lots, different houses. Sometimes I didn't like it, but Mama said we had to stay safe. Safe from me, Quinlan said, and the pain in his voice was palpable. Your mother thought she needed to keep you safe from your own father. Can I come closer? Arya asked suddenly, and Lucia's arms tightened reflexively. Sweetheart, I don't think. Please, Mama? Those strange, beautiful eyes turned up to her. I'm not scared. He won't hurt us. Arya, let her choose, Quinlan said quietly. I will not force anything, Lucia. Not her and not you. But let her make this choice. Lucia wanted to refuse, wanted to hold her daughter and run again, but she saw the determination in Arya's face, the curiosity, and she realized that keeping them apart might cause more damage than allowing them to meet. Slowly, she lowered Arya to the ground. The little girl walked forward with surprising confidence, crossing the space between them until she stood directly in front of the Vampire King. She tilted her head back to look up at him, studying his face with intense concentration. You look like my dreams, she said finally, but realer, bigger. You look like the answer to every prayer I didn't know I was making, Quinlan replied, and his voice cracked. Slowly, carefully he knelt so they were at eye level. I am your father, little one, and I have wanted to meet you since the moment I knew you existed. Why didn't you come sooner? Your mother hid you very well, and the world is very large. It took me this long to find you. Arya considered this. Then, with the mercurial logic of a child, she reached out and touched his face, her small hand against his pale cheek. Quinlan froze, his eyes closing as if the touch caused him pain. You're cold, Arya observed. I am vampire. We run colder than humans. I'm warmer than you, but colder than Mama. Because you are both, the best of both our kinds. Arya seemed to accept this. Then, shocking everyone in the room, she threw her small arms around his neck in a hug. Quinlan made a sound like he'd been struck. His arms came up slowly, carefully, to embrace her, and Lucia saw his hands shake as he held their daughter. When he opened his eyes again, there were tears in them, impossible, because vampires didn't cry, except apparently they did. I'm sorry, he said, and Lucia realized he was speaking to her over Arya's head. I'm sorry I made you feel you had no choice but to run. I'm sorry I gave you reason to fear me. I'm sorry for every moment of terror you've lived through because of my failure to make you understand what you meant to me. Lucia's own eyes were burning with tears. I thought you would take her from me. I thought I would lose everything. Never, he said fiercely. Lucia, look at me. She met his gaze, those extraordinary eyes that had haunted her dreams for 3 years. You are the mother of my child, the only woman I have ever loved in 8 centuries of existence, he said, and every word carried the weight of absolute truth. I would burn my kingdom to ash before I separated you from your daughter. Our daughter, the laws, will be changed, have been changed. I began the process the moment I understood you were pregnant, continued it even as I searched for you. The old ways are abolished. Human parents retain full rights over their children. No one will take Arya from you, not even me. You can't just change laws that have existed, for I am the king, he said simply. I can do exactly that, and I have. It has caused some discord among the old families, but they will adapt or face my wrath. My priority has been finding you both and ensuring that when I did, you would have no reason to fear remaining here. Lucia's mind was spinning. Everything she had believed, every assumption she had made was crumbling. You changed the laws for me? I would change the world for you. Arya pulled back from the embrace, looking between her parents with the serious expression that made her seem far older than 3. Are we staying here now? She asked. With him? Lucia looked around the throne room, at the vampire courtiers watching with expressions ranging from curious to hostile, at Seraphine whose face remained carefully neutral, at the intimidating grandeur of a world she had fled from. Then she looked at Quinlan, still kneeling before their daughter, his expression open and vulnerable in a way she suspected few had ever witnessed. I don't know, she admitted. This is all happening so fast. 3 years I've been running and hiding and terrified. I can't just then. Don't, Quinlan said, rising smoothly to his feet. Stay as my guest, not my prisoner. Take time to see what I have built here, what protections I have put in place. Let Arya know her heritage, her father, and if after you have seen everything, you still wish to leave, I will let you go. You would do that? I would hate every moment of it, would feel the absence like a blade in my heart, but yes, I want you here because you choose to be, not because you're compelled. But she's your heir. You expect me to believe you'd let her leave? She is our daughter, before she is my heir. Her happiness matters more than tradition or politics. He looked at Arya, his expression softening again. I have waited 3 years. I can wait longer if that is what is needed for you to trust me. Seraphine stepped forward. Your Majesty, the council will expect. The council can wait, Quinlan said without looking away from Lucia. My family comes first. That is the new law, and they will adjust to it. Lucia felt something loosen in her chest, some tight knot of fear that had been there so long she'd forgotten what it felt like to breathe without it. I need time, she said. I need to think, to understand all of this. Can you give me that? You can have anything I possess to give, he replied. Seraphine, have the eastern apartments prepared, the ones overlooking the gardens. Ensure they have everything needed for a child, and see that Lucia's belongings from her apartment are retrieved and brought here. The entire apartment? Seraphine asked. Everything. I want her to feel this can be her home. Seraphine bowed and departed, leaving them in the throne room with only a few guards who maintained careful distance. Arya tugged on Quinlan's hand. Do you have toys here? He blinked, clearly not having expected that question. I am uncertain. I have not had cause to keep toys in the court before. Can I get some? You can have a room full of toys if you wish. That's too many, Arya said seriously. Just some. And books. Mama reads to me every night. Then you shall have a library of your own. Watching them together, Lucia felt her carefully constructed walls cracking further. She had imagined this moment so differently: violence, forced separation, her worst fears realized. Instead, she was watching the Vampire King promise their daughter bedtime stories and negotiate appropriate toy quantities. Come, Quinlan said, offering his hand to Lucia as well. Let me show you what I have prepared for your arrival. I have been building this home in my heart, hoping that one day I would find you both. Lucia hesitated only a moment before taking his hand. His skin was cool against hers, exactly as she remembered, and the touch sent electricity racing up her arm. His fingers tightened gently, carefully, as if she were precious. They walked through the corridors of the court, Arya between them, holding both their hands. Vampires they passed, stopped and stared openly at the unprecedented sight: their king, the most powerful vampire in the realm, walking hand in hand with a human woman and a half-vampire child, his face showing more emotion than any could remember witnessing. The eastern apartments proved to be a sprawling suite of rooms that could have housed 20 people comfortably. The main living area had floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooking extensive gardens that glowed with moonlight. The furniture was elegant but comfortable, mixing modern pieces with antiques. There was a large bedroom clearly meant for Lucia, decorated in soft colors, and adjoining it was a smaller room already being prepared with a child-sized bed and cheerful decorations. The staff are bringing items appropriate for a child, Quinlan explained, watching Arya immediately begin exploring with enthusiasm. If there is anything specific she needs or wants, you have only to ask. This is too much, Lucia said faintly. These rooms are larger than any place I've lived in years. They are yours for as long as you wish them. Longer, if you'll have them permanently. She turned to face him fully. Quinlan, why? Why go to all this trouble? You're a king. You could have just commanded me to stay, taken Arya regardless of my wishes. Because that would have destroyed any chance of you ever looking at me without fear, he said quietly. And I find I cannot bear the thought of you fearing me. I spent 3 years in a personal hell, Lucia. Knowing our daughter existed somewhere, feeling her in my blood like a constant whisper, but unable to locate her. Unable to protect her, or know if she was safe, healthy, happy. Do you know what that does to a vampire? We are possessive creatures by nature, territorial, protective of what is ours, and she was mine, you were mine, and I could not find you. I'm not yours, Lucia said, but the words lacked heat. I'm not property. No, he agreed, you are my heart, which is far more fundamental. Property can be replaced. Hearts cannot. You can't just say things like that. Why not? They are true. He moved closer, careful not to crowd her. I loved you 3 years ago, Lucia. I love you now. I loved you through every moment you were gone, even not knowing if I would ever see you again. That does not change with time or distance. You barely knew me. We were together for what, 2 months? 8 weeks, 4 days, he said immediately. I could tell you the hours as well if you wish, and in that time I knew you better than I have known anyone in centuries. You were brilliant, witty, challenging. You did not defer to me simply because of my crown. You argued with me about policy, corrected my translations, made me laugh. You made me feel alive in a way I had not felt since my human life 800 years ago. I thought it was just physical, Lucia admitted. I thought I was convenient, a diversion. When I found out I was pregnant, I panicked. All I could think about was losing my freedom, losing my baby. I failed you, he said. I should have made my intentions clear, should have told you what you meant to me. I was cautious because I did not want to overwhelm you, did not want you to feel pressured by my position. Instead, my caution gave you reason to flee. Arya had found the room being prepared for her and gave a delighted gasp. Mama, look, it has stars on the ceiling. They moved to the doorway to see what had captivated her. Indeed, the ceiling had been painted with a night sky, constellations picked out in luminous paint that would glow in the dark. I remember you mentioned once that you loved astronomy, Quinlan said to Lucia. I thought perhaps our daughter might as well. You remembered that? I remember everything about you. The way you take your coffee, that you prefer reading to television, that you hum when you cook, that you cannot sleep without at least one window open even in winter. I remember all of it, and I have held those memories close like treasures in your absence. Lucia felt tears threatening again. This is so much to process. I know. I do not mean to pressure you. Take your time, explore the court, let Arya adjust. I will be patient. The king patient, she said with a shaky laugh. That doesn't sound very vampire-like. I have learned many things in my long life, he replied. But the most important lesson came in losing you, that some things are worth any weight, any sacrifice. Over the following days, Lucia began to tentatively explore the world she had fled from. The court of eternal night was larger and more complex than she had imagined, a society unto itself hidden beneath the facade of a private estate. There were hundreds of vampires in residence, from ancient nobles to younger vampires learning courtly ways. There were also humans. She discovered to her surprise employees who knew exactly what their employers were and chose to work there regardless, protected by strict codes of conduct. Seraphine proved to be an unexpected guide and ally. The first council was intimidating, ancient even by vampire standards, but she seemed to have a soft spot for Arya. The king has been transformed by your return, Seraphine said one afternoon as they watched Arya play in the gardens under heavy cloud cover that allowed the vampires to move about outside. I have served his line for 400 years, and I have never seen him as he has been these past 3 years, consumed with grief and longing. He barely maintained court functions, delegated heavily, spent every moment searching for leads on your location. I didn't know, Lucia said quietly. I thought he might look for a while out of principle because I had something that belonged to him. I didn't think he would care this deeply. Vampires love rarely, Seraphine said. But when we do, it is absolute. We are not creatures of halfway measures. And half-vampire children are extraordinarily rare. In my 4 centuries I have seen perhaps a dozen born. Most vampire couplings with humans do not result in pregnancy. It requires a deep connection, a bond of blood and heart. That a child was conceived between you speaks to the depth of feeling on both sides. I cared about him, Lucia admitted. More than I wanted to, more than was safe. That's part of why I ran. I was afraid of how much I felt, how easily I could imagine losing myself in him. And now I don't know. He's not what I expected. None of this is. Arya came running up, her silver blonde hair streaming behind her. Mama, Seraphine, watch. I can climb really high. Carefully, Lucia called as her daughter scampered up a tree with preternatural agility. She will need training, Seraphine observed. Her vampire nature is strong, but she lacks control. As she grows older, the strength will increase, and without proper guidance, She could accidentally hurt herself or others. What kind of training? Physical control, primarily. Also education about vampire history, culture, law. She is the king's daughter, which makes her a princess of the realm. She will need to understand what that means. I don't want her life dictated by politics. Neither does the king, Seraphine said. But there are realities that must be addressed. There are already factions within the court who are curious about her status. Some see opportunity, others threat. The king has made clear that she is under his absolute protection, but she should understand the world she has been born into. That evening, Quinlan requested Lucia's presence at dinner. Not a formal court function, he assured her through a written note delivered by a young vampire servant, but a private meal in his chambers. She almost declined, but something made her accept. His chambers were on the opposite side of the manor, accessed through a private corridor. They were elegantly appointed, masculine without being severe, full of books and artwork that spanned centuries. A table had been set near windows overlooking the forest, candles providing warm light. Quinlan was waiting, dressed simply in dark clothing that somehow made him look even more regal. He stood when she entered, his expression carefully neutral, as if he was afraid of scaring her away. "Thank you for coming," he said. "Please sit." The meal was entirely human food, prepared to perfection, and Lucia realized he must have hired human chefs for a benefit. "You don't eat any of this," she observed. "No, but I remember the experience of it, and I enjoy watching you enjoy it." "That's not creepy at all," she said, but smiled to take the sting from the words. He smiled back, and she was struck by how different he looked when he smiled, younger somehow, less the ancient king and more the man she had fallen for 3 years ago. "How is Arya adjusting?" he asked. "Better than I expected. She's fascinated by everything. I found her questioning a vampire guard this morning about the difference between vampire and human strength, taking notes in her little notebook like she was conducting research. She has your intelligence and your intensity. She doesn't do anything halfway." "She is remarkable," Quinlan said softly. "Every moment I spend with her I am overwhelmed by what I might have missed. Her first words, her first steps, watching her personality develop. You gave her that, kept her safe when I could not. I am grateful, even as I grieve what I lost." "I'm sorry," Lucia said, surprising herself. "I'm sorry you missed those things. I was so focused on my fear that I didn't think about what it might mean to you. You were protecting your child. I cannot fault you for that, no matter how much it hurt." They ate in companionable silence for a while. Then Lucia asked, "Why did you change the laws?" "Really, it must have caused enormous problems." "It caused substantial discord," he admitted. "Several old families threatened to break from the court. A few younger vampires attempted to challenge my authority directly. What happened to them? They learned that I did not become king by being merciful to those who threaten what I love." His voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. "I will not apologize for protecting my family, Lucia. Anyone who threatens you or Arya will face my full wrath." She should have been frightened by that statement, by the casual admission of violence. Instead, she felt something warm unfurl in her chest: protection, safety, the knowledge that this powerful creature would stand between her daughter and any threat. "The changes have also had positive effects," he continued. "We have seen an increase in cooperation from human governments, more willingness to work together now that they know their people will not be trapped by archaic laws. Several other vampire courts are considering similar reforms. You changed vampire culture for me. I would change far more than that," he said, meeting her eyes. "I would reshape the world if it meant keeping you safe and happy. That's a lot of pressure to put on someone." "I do not mean it as pressure, I mean it as truth. You asked why I have done all this, and the answer is simple: because I love you. Because you are the first thing I think of when darkness falls each night, and the last thing on my mind before I take my rest at dawn. Because these 3 years without you have been a special kind of torture, and now that I have you back, I will do anything to convince you to stay." "I'm not the same person I was 3 years ago," Lucia said. "Being on the run, raising a child alone, constantly afraid, it changed me. Then I will learn to love who you have become, though I suspect I will find it easy, as the core of you remains the same strong, brilliant, fierce in your protection of those you love. You can't just say romantic things and expect me to forget 3 years of terror. I do not expect you to forget. I hope only that you will allow me to help you heal, to build new memories that do not involve fear." Arya appeared in the doorway at that moment, escorted by a vampire Lucia had learned was called Theron, head of the king's personal guard. "She would not stay in her rooms," Theron said, sounding exasperated. "She is very determined for one so small." "I wanted to say good night," Arya said, running to her mother. "The stars on the ceiling are glowing, Mama. They're so pretty." "That's wonderful, sweetheart, But you should be in bed. Can he come tuck me in? Arya pointed at Quinlan. You said daddies do that. Lucia's heart clenched. She had told Arya stories about fathers, about families, always wondering if her daughter would ever have that experience. Quinlan looked as if he had been struck. Ah, yes. If your mother permits it, I would be honored. They walked together to Arya's room, a strange little family in the making. Quinlan had clearly never tucked a child into bed before and moved with unusual uncertainty. But Arya guided him through it with patient instruction. Now you pull the blanket up like this, and then you kiss my forehead, and then Mama reads a story. He followed her directions carefully, and when he kissed her forehead, his eyes closed as if he was memorizing the moment. Lucia read from a picture book they had brought from the apartment. Arya's eyes grew heavy. Will you be here tomorrow? She asked Quinlan sleepily. I will be here every day that you wish me to be, he promised. Good, I like having a daddy. Those simple words made his breath catch. He reached out and gently brushed silver blonde hair from her face. I like being your daddy, little one. She was asleep moments later, worn out from a day of exploring. Lucia and Quinlan stood looking down at her, and he reached out slowly to take Lucia's hand. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for bringing her into the world, for keeping her safe, for raising her into this remarkable little person. Thank you for coming back, even though you did not choose it. Thank you for giving me a chance to know her. She deserves to know her father, Lucia said. Whatever my fears, I can't deny that. And what do you deserve, Lucia? She looked at him, at this powerful ancient being who watched her with such longing, such hope. I don't know anymore. I thought I deserved freedom, autonomy. But maybe I also deserve honesty. Safety, someone who sees me as more than just the mother of his child. You are the woman I love, he said intently. The mother of my child, yes, but so much more than that. You are brilliant and brave. You have a sharp wit that delights me. You challenge me in ways no one has in centuries. You are everything I did not know I was searching for in 800 years of existence. How can you be sure? How can you know this isn't just about Arya? Because I have spent 3 years mourning the loss of both of you, and while the pain of being separated from my daughter was agony, the pain of losing you was what truly broke me. She is my blood, my legacy, my hope for the future. But you are my heart, and without you, I am merely existing, not living. Tears were streaming down Lucia's face now. I'm so scared. Scared of believing you, scared of what happens if I let myself trust this. I've been running for so long, I don't know how to stop. Then let me catch you, he said, pulling her gently into his arms. Let me be the place you stop running, the harbor where you can finally rest. She pressed her face against his chest, breathing in the scent of him, something like winter and old books and safety. His arms came around her, strong and careful, holding her as if she was precious beyond measure. I missed you, she admitted against his shirt. I tried not to. Tried to convince myself you were the enemy, but I missed you every single day. Lucia, he breathed, and his voice was raw with emotion. Lucia, my heart, my light, I will spend the rest of my existence making you feel safe enough to stay. She pulled back to look at him, and what she saw in his face made her breath catch love, pure and absolute, vulnerable and open in a way she suspected few ever witnessed from the Vampire King. Kiss me, she whispered, like you did 3 years ago. Help me remember why I fell for you in the first place. He cupped her face with both hands, his cool palms against her flushed cheeks, and lowered his mouth to hers with aching gentleness. The kiss was soft at first, reverent, as if he feared she might vanish again if he was too demanding. But when she pressed closer, her hands fisting in his shirt, he deepened the kiss with a hunger that made her knees weak. It was exactly as she remembered, and better, the coolness of his mouth, the careful control that marked every movement, the leashed power that promised he would never harm her, even as it suggested he could destroy anyone who threatened her. She had forgotten how overwhelming it was to be the focus of a vampire's desire, how intoxicating. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, well, she was breathing hard. He was doing it more for show. He rested his forehead against hers. I have dreamed of this, he said roughly. Holding you again, kissing you again. Reality is far better than memory. We're not fixed, she warned. One kiss doesn't erase everything, I know. But it is a beginning, and I will take any beginning you offer me. They stood there in the soft glow of Arya's starlit ceiling, holding each other, and Lucia felt something settle in her soul, not resolution, not yet, but possibility. The following weeks developed a rhythm. Lucia spent her days exploring the court, learning about the changes Quinlan had implemented, watching as Arya began training with vampire tutors, who taught her to control her unusual strength and speed. The child took to it with enthusiasm, loving every moment of her lessons. Quinlan was careful not to push, but he was always present, joining them for meals, reading to Arya at bedtime, stealing private moments with Lucia where they talked for hours about everything and nothing. He told her about the centuries he had lived, the rise and fall of kingdoms, the evolution of vampire society. She told him about the 3 years on the run, the fear and exhaustion, but also the joy of watching Arya grow. Slowly, carefully, trust began to rebuild. There were complications, of course. Some members of the court resented the changes, resented Lucia's presence and influence. A faction led by an ancient vampire named Mordain attempted to challenge Quinlan's reforms through formal protest. The king's response was swift and absolute. Lucia was invited to observe the court session where the challenge was addressed, sitting in a place of honor beside the throne while Quinlan addressed his nobles. "You question my authority to change laws that have stood for millennia," Quinlan said, his voice carrying through the vast chamber with ringing clarity. "You claim I am weakening vampire society by granting rights to humans and half-vampire children. Allow me to clarify something that should have always been understood." He rose from the throne, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop, power radiating from him in palpable waves. "I am your king by right of conquest, by right of strength, by right of vision. My authority is not contingent on your approval. The laws I have implemented are not subject to your protest. They are reality, and you will adapt to them or find yourself exiled from this court." "Your Majesty," Mordain said, his pale face set in stubborn lines, "we do not question your strength, we question your judgment. This human has compromised you. Speak carefully." Quinlan's voice was deadly soft. "You stand on the edge of insulting not just your king, but the mother of my child and the woman I love. I assure you, the consequences of such an insult would be severe. We merely observe that your decisions seem unduly influenced." "My decisions are influenced by wisdom gained from 8 centuries of leadership," Quinlan interrupted. "By understanding that our survival depends on adaptation, on cooperation with the human world rather than antagonism. By recognizing that the old ways, while comfortable for ancient vampires like yourself, were unjust and ultimately unsustainable. I have made these changes not from weakness but from strength, the strength to admit when tradition serves no purpose but to perpetuate cruelty." The assembled vampires were silent, watching the confrontation with fascinated attention. "Now," Quinlan continued, "you have a choice. Accept the new order, serve loyally, and retain your place in this court. Or continue your opposition and face exile. Choose quickly, as my patience is not infinite." Mordain looked around, perhaps seeking support, but found none willing to openly defy the king. Finally, with visible reluctance, he bowed. "I will accept the new order, Your Majesty." "See that you do." Quinlan returned to his throne, his expression carved from ice. "Let this be the last challenge to my authority on this matter. The laws regarding human rights and the treatment of half-vampire children are permanent. Any further protest will be treated as treason." After the session, Lucia found Quinlan alone in his study, staring out at the darkening sky. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "Threaten them on my behalf." "I threatened them for insulting their king," he corrected. "That they also insulted you simply made me more inclined toward harshness. Still, you're risking discord in your court." "There has always been discord in courts," he interrupted, turning to face her. "Politics is a constant negotiation of power and tradition, but this was necessary. They needed to understand that you and Arya are not negotiable, not temporary, not subject to their approval. They needed to see that I am absolute in my protection of you both. I heard what you said about loving me, in front of everyone. Yes." He moved closer. "I wanted no ambiguity. Let every vampire in this court understand that you are under my protection, that you have my heart. It is both shield and warning. None will dare harm you now. Because it would mean defying you, because it would mean destroying what I love, and I would burn the world in retaliation." She shook her head, smiling despite herself. "You say terrifying things so calmly. I am what I am, Lucia. Ancient, powerful, possessive. I will not apologize for the intensity of my nature, but I will always direct that intensity toward protecting you, never controlling you. I'm starting to understand that," she admitted. "Starting to believe it. What would it take for you to believe it completely?" She considered the question seriously. "Time, mostly. More moments like this, building a life together, seeing that this is real and sustainable. And maybe I need to stop being afraid of my own feelings. You are afraid of loving me." It wasn't a question. She nodded anyway. "Loving you means giving up control, means trusting you with everything. That's terrifying." "I am afraid too," he said quietly. "Afraid you will decide this is too much, that you will take Arya and leave and I will lose you both again. Afraid I will fail you somehow, make a mistake that costs me everything I care about. Love is always frightening, Lucia, even for immortals. Perhaps especially for immortals, as we have so much time to lose. What do we do with the fear?" We acknowledge it, and then we choose to love anyway. We build something strong enough to withstand the fear. She stepped into his arms, and he held her close, careful and tender and absolutely secure. I'm choosing to try, she said against his chest. I'm choosing to believe this can work. That is all I ask. Weeks turned into months, and the court adjusted to its new normal. Arya thrived, growing stronger and more confident, her training progressing remarkably well. She was a fixture in the court now, charming even the most stern vampires with her curiosity and fearlessness. Lucia found purpose in the court, working with Seraphine to improve human-vampire relations, using her skills as a translator and diplomat to bridge worlds. It was fulfilling work, important work, and she realized how much she had missed having a purpose beyond simple survival. And with Quinlan, she fell in love again, or perhaps more accurately, allowed herself to acknowledge that she had never stopped loving him. They spent nights talking until dawn, walking through the gardens in darkness, making love with a passion that left them both breathless and wanting more. He was attentive and patient, fierce and gentle, exactly what she needed even when she didn't know she needed it. But there were still moments of doubt, times when the old fear would resurface, and she would find herself planning escape routes in her mind. Just in case. One such moment came on a cold winter night when a delegation from another vampire court arrived unexpectedly. The visitors were from the Court of Crimson Shadows, led by a vampire queen named Isolde, who had a reputation for ruthlessness. Isolde was striking, white hair falling to her waist, crimson eyes that seemed to glow, skin like porcelain marked with elaborate tattoos that suggested great age and power. She swept into the throne room with a retinue of guards, her gaze immediately fixing on Quinlan with predatory interest. King Quinlan, she said, her voice like silk over steel. It has been too long since we met. I came personally when I heard the rumors that you had found your missing human, that you keep a half-blood child in your court. Queen Isolde. Quinlan's voice was carefully neutral, but Lucia could sense tension in him. Welcome to the Court of Eternal Night. To what do I owe the honor of your visit? Curiosity, primarily. I wanted to see if the rumors were true, if the great Quinlan Larenthus had truly been brought low by a human woman. Isolde's gaze moved to Lucia, sitting in her place of honor beside the throne, and her lips curved in a smile that was not friendly. This is her, I presume. Quite ordinary, isn't she? Lucia felt her face heat, but before she could respond, Quinlan spoke, his voice dropping to a dangerous register. I would advise extreme caution in how you speak of her. Come now, no need for threats. I simply observe that she lacks the qualities I would expect to captivate a king. No title, no power, no great beauty. Leave. The single word cracked like a whip. Leave my court now, Isolde, before I make you leave. The temperature in the room plummeted, frost forming on the windows. The assembled vampires drew back, recognizing the king's rage. Isolde's expression shifted from mocking to wary. You would threaten me, an allied queen, over a human's feelings? I would destroy an allied queen for insulting the woman I love. Quinlan corrected, rising from his throne. Power radiated from him, ancient and terrible, the full weight of his 8 centuries on display. You have insulted my mate, the mother of my child, the heart of my court. You have approximately 30 seconds to remove yourself from my presence before I demonstrate exactly why I have held my throne for 500 years. Isolde stared at him, clearly reassessing. Then, with remarkable wisdom, she bowed. I see I have miscalculated. Forgive my discourtesy, King Quinlan. I will take my leave. She swept out with her retinue, and the moment the doors closed behind her, Quinlan was at Lucia's side. Are you well? Did her words hurt you? I'm fine, Lucia said, though her hands were shaking. She was just being cruel. She was testing me, attempting to understand if my feelings for you were genuine or a passing fancy. She learned her answer. He cupped her face gently. You are none of the things she suggested, ordinary, unworthy, beneath notice. You are extraordinary, deserving of everything I can give you, and you shine brighter than any star in my sky. You're biased. I am honest. And I will face down every vampire court in existence if they question your place at my side. Watching the fierce expression in his face, the absolute certainty, something finally broke in Lucia, the last wall of fear and doubt crumbling away. I love you, she said, and watched his eyes widen. I love you, Quinlan. I have loved you for 3 years, even when I was running from you, even when I was terrified. I love you, and I'm tired of being afraid of it. He made a sound like he'd been struck, pulling her into his arms with careful urgency. Say it again. I love you. Again. I love you, you impossible, dramatic vampire. He laughed, the sound full of joy, and kissed her deeply, right there in the throne room, with dozens of vampires watching. When he pulled back, his eyes were bright with emotion. I love you, Lucia Montgomery. I have loved you from the first moment you challenged my translation of an ancient text and told me I was pronouncing everything wrong. I will love you until the stars burn out and the world ends. That's a long time for a human. Then I will love you for the span of your life and carry that love with me through the rest of my existence. What if? She hesitated, then pushed forward. What if I didn't want you to carry it alone? What if I wanted to stay with you longer than a human lifetime? He went very still. What are you saying? I'm saying I've been researching. Talking to Seraphine, reading vampire lore. I know it's possible for a human to be turned, to become vampire. I know it's rare, difficult, not without risks. But it's possible, Lucia. I'm not saying now, she continued quickly. I'm human right now and I want to enjoy that, want to watch Arya grow up as her human mother. But someday when she's grown, when she doesn't need me in the same way, I don't want to leave you. I don't want my human lifespan to be the limit of what we can have together. His hands were shaking as they cupped her face. Do you understand what you are suggesting? The transformation is agonizing, dangerous. You would give up sunlight, human food, the ability to age and change. You would become something other than what you are. I would become your equal, she said. Your mate in truth, not just in feeling. And I would have eternity to love you. That seems worth any sacrifice. I cannot ask this of you. You're not asking, I'm offering. Not today, maybe not for years. But someday, if you'll have me. If I'll, he laughed, the sound breaking on something like a sob. Lucia, I would give you anything, everything. If you choose to walk this path to join me in immortality, I will count it as the greatest gift I have ever received. Then it's settled. Someday, when the time is right, we'll take that step. He kissed her again, and this time it was full of promise, of future, of forever. Arya's voice rang out from somewhere in the back of the throne room, where she had apparently been watching. Does this mean we're staying? For always? They broke apart, laughing, and Quinlan held out an arm to their daughter. She ran forward and he scooped her up effortlessly, holding both his loves close. Yes, little one, he said. You are staying for always. This is your home, your court, your birthright. Good, Arya said decisively. I like it here, and I like having both my parents together. So do I, Lucia said softly, looking at Quinlan. So do I. The formal bonding ceremony took place 3 months later, a vampire ritual that was both wedding and more a magical binding that would tie their lives together even before Lucia's eventual transformation. The court assembled in their finest, the throne room decorated with flowers that bloomed only at night, hundreds of candles casting warm light. Lucia wore a gown of deep blue that brought out her eyes, her hair left long and loose the way Quinlan loved it. He wore formal vampire attire, black and silver, elegant and regal, every inch the king. Seraphine officiated, her ancient voice carrying through the chamber as she spoke the words that had bound vampire couples for millennia. The ceremony involved blood, of course a small taste that would mark Lucia as Quinlan's even before the full transformation, a promise and protection. When it came time for the blood exchange, Quinlan's hand was gentle as he lifted her wrist to his lips, his fangs piercing her skin with care, taking only the smallest amount. The sensation made her gasp, not with pain, but with an electric connection that seemed to light up every nerve. Then it was her turn, and he offered his wrist, already opened with a small cut. She pressed her lips to it, tasting his blood for the first time, strange and cold and powerful. It sang through her system, making her head spin, and she felt something snap into place, a bond, a connection that went deeper than words or touches. When they pulled apart, both breathing hard, the court erupted in acknowledgement, not quite applause, but a hum of power and approval that resonated through the room. You are mine, Quinlan said softly, so only she could hear. And I am yours now and forever. Forever, she agreed and kissed him as the court celebrated around them. The celebration continued into the night, vampire and human attendees mingling, music playing, Arya dancing with abandon until she fell asleep in Seraphine's arms, worn out by excitement. Later, alone in their shared chambers, Lucia had officially moved into Quinlan's rooms the week before they stood by the window looking out at the forest. Do you regret it? Quinlan asked, his arm around her waist. Coming here, staying, binding yourself to me? Not for a second. Lucia said honestly. Sometimes I think about how different my life would be if I had never met you. Quieter, maybe safer, but it wouldn't have Arya, it wouldn't have this. And I can't imagine anything better than what we have. We have forever to build something extraordinary. Speaking of forever, she said, turning in his arms, I've been thinking about the timeline. For my transformation, his body tensed. You wish to discuss this now? I want us to have a plan, something to look forward to. Seraphine suggested waiting until Arya reaches adulthood, until she's 18 and fully grown into her own power. That gives us 15 years of human life together. 15 years of watching our daughter grow up. And then I will turn you if you still wish it, and we will have eternity. That sounds perfect. 15 years is not so long for me to wait, he said. I have waited centuries for you. I can wait a little longer to have you forever. But we have now too, she reminded him. We have tonight, tomorrow, all the days in between. Then let us not waste them, he said, and kissed her with all the passion and love and promise of the future they were building together. Years passed, measured in moments of joy rather than fear. Arya grew from a precocious toddler into a remarkable child, then a striking young woman. She trained with the best vampire warriors, studied with the most learned scholars, learned to navigate the complex politics of the court with her mother's intelligence and her father's confidence. She was beloved by the court, fierce and kind in equal measure, everything a vampire princess should be. Lucia thrived in her role, becoming one of the king's most trusted advisors, her insights bridging the gap between vampire and human worlds. She and Quinlan built something unprecedented, a truly integrated court where humans and vampires worked together as equals, where old prejudices gave way to mutual respect. And through it all their love deepened, growing richer with time. Every sunrise Quinlan returned to her before his rest. Every sunset she was there to greet his waking. They had learned each other completely, every fear, every hope, every dream. On Arya's 18th birthday, the court celebrated with characteristic vampire grandeur. The young princess was radiant, powerful in her own right now, having grown into her dual nature with grace. She had her father's strength and her mother's wisdom, and there was speculation already about what role she would take in the court as she came into adulthood. After the celebration, as dawn approached, Lucia and Quinlan stood together in their chambers, the first hints of light touching the horizon. She's grown, Quinlan said softly, watching the sunrise, something he could do only through windows specially treated to filter the deadly rays. Our little girl is a woman now. Time moves so quickly when you're human, Lucia said. These 18 years felt like they flew by. Are you ready? He asked, turning to face her. We have spoken of this for years, but I need to know, do you still want this? There is no shame in changing your mind. I will love you regardless, for whatever span of life you have. I'm ready, she said with certainty. I'm ready to join you in immortality, to be your equal in truth, to have forever at your side. The transformation is agonizing, he warned, not for the first time. Your human body will essentially die and remake itself as vampire. It takes 3 days, and they will be the worst 3 days of your existence. I know, I've prepared, and I trust you to guide me through it. Then we will begin tonight after I rest. I want to be at full strength to help you through the process. Tonight, she agreed, and felt not fear but excitement. A new chapter beginning, a new form of existence. That evening, surrounded by those who loved them, Seraphine, Arya, trusted members of the court, Lucia lay down on a prepared bed in a chamber set aside for the transformation. Quinlan sat beside her, his expression grave. Last chance to change your mind, he said, taking her hand. Never. I want this. I want forever with you. He nodded and his fangs extended. Unlike the gentle bite of their bonding ceremony, this would be deep, draining, taking her to the edge of death. And then his blood, ancient and powerful, would remake her. I love you, he said. I love you. See you on the other side. His fangs pierced her throat and the world began to fade. The transformation was everything he had warned, and worse, pain beyond description. Her body feeling like it was being torn apart and rebuilt at the cellular level. She was aware of Quinlan's presence throughout, his voice anchoring her, his blood feeding her new nature. Arya stayed close too, her daughter's hand in hers, keeping her connected to the world. Time lost meaning. There was only pain and transformation, death and rebirth. And then, after an eternity that was only 3 days, Lucia opened her eyes. The world was different, sharper, more vivid. She could hear heartbeats from rooms away, could smell blood and life with overwhelming intensity. Her body felt different, stronger, faster, cold where it had been warm. Quinlan was there immediately, his face anxious. Lucia, can you hear me? Yes, she said. And her voice was different too, carrying a resonance it hadn't before. I can hear everything, feel everything. Quinlan, it's incredible. Relief flooded his features. You survived. You are vampire now, my equal, my mate in truth. She sat up, testing her new body, and was amazed by the strength, the control. Then she looked at her hands and saw they had paled, not quite as white as the old vampires, but definitely no longer human-toned. How do I look? She asked. Beautiful, he said immediately. Different but still you. Your eyes have changed, they have that gleam now, that reflection of power. Your features are sharper, more defined. But you are still my Lucia. Arya appeared in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. Mama, you made it? I made it, sweetheart. Come here. Her daughter came to her, and Lucia was careful with her new strength as she embraced her. But Arya laughed, strong enough in her own right not to be hurt by the hug. Now you'll be here forever, Arya said. Both of you. Forever, forever, Lucia agreed. Looking at Quinlan over their daughter's head, the first sunrise was hard. The instinct to retreat from the deadly light was overwhelming, and she finally understood the fear vampires felt. But Quinlan was there, guiding her to their chambers with windows that filtered the light, teaching her how to manage the vulnerability. It becomes second nature, he promised. After a few centuries, you barely think about it. Centuries, she repeated, shaking her head. That's going to take some getting used to. We have time, he said with a smile. All the time in existence. The court welcomed her new status, though there were adjustments. She had to learn to manage the bloodlust, to navigate vampire society as one of them rather than as a human observer. Seraphine became her guide in this, teaching her the finer points of vampire etiquette and power management. You are a queen now in all but name, Seraphine told her one evening. The king's bonded mate transformed by his blood. You have status and power, use them wisely. I'm still me, Lucia protested. I don't feel like royalty, perhaps not yet, but you will grow into it as you have grown into everything else. Years continued to pass, but now they passed differently for Lucia, not with the urgent rush of a human lifetime but with the longer perspective of immortality. She watched Arya continue to grow and develop, eventually taking on her own role in the court, becoming a bridge between vampire and human worlds in her own way. And with Quinlan, she built a love that transcended time. They ruled together, transformed vampire society, watched the human world change and evolve around them. They had challenges, certainly political struggles, threats from outside courts, the constant negotiation of power, but they faced everything together, united in purpose and love. On their 50th anniversary of the bonding ceremony, they stood together in the garden under a full moon, Arya beside them with a partner of her own, a young vampire she had fallen for, whose family served the court faithfully. 50 years, Lucia said wonderingly. And it feels like both a moment and a lifetime. The first 50 of many, Quinlan said, his arm around her waist. How do you feel? Any regrets about the transformation? She considered seriously, then shook her head. Not a single one. I miss sunlight sometimes, miss being warm. But I wouldn't trade what we have for anything. Mama, Dad, look, Arya called, pointing to the sky where stars were falling in a meteor shower, streaks of light against the darkness. They watched together. This strange family forged from impossible circumstances, and Lucia felt complete in a way she had never imagined possible. She had run from this world once, terrified of losing herself, of becoming trapped. Instead, she had found freedom in choosing to stay, in building a life with the vampire who loved her, in raising a daughter who bridged worlds, in becoming something more than she had been. I love you, she said to Quinlan, words she never tired of speaking. I love you, he replied, words he never tired of hearing, my mate. My queen, my heart, through eternity and beyond. Forever, she agreed, and kissed him under the falling stars. And forever was exactly what they had, a love that transcended species and time, built on trust earned through trial, deepened by challenges overcome together. The vampire and the woman who fled from him, who hid his child, who came back despite her fear, who chose love over safety. They had their happy ending, and it stretched before them into infinity, full of love and purpose and joy. The court of eternal night flourished under their joint rule, a beacon of cooperation between vampire and human worlds. Arya grew into her own power, eventually taking on more responsibility in the court, preparing for the day she might rule herself. But that was far in the future. For now there was the present moment, of family united, a love that conquered all obstacles, a future bright with promise. The story that had begun with fear and flight had transformed into something beautiful, something eternal. And in the quiet moments, when the court was settled and they were alone, Lucia would sometimes think about that terrified woman who had run 3 years pregnant, sure that she was protecting her child from a terrible fate. She had been so wrong, and she had never been happier to be wrong about anything, because the Vampire King had not wanted to trap her, he had wanted to love her. And in accepting that love, in choosing to stay, in becoming his equal in immortality, she had found not a cage but wings. This was her home, this was her family, this was her forever, and it was perfect.